but no judgment.
I feel like you did just judge them.
But if you say no judgment, it cancels it out.
Oh.
Yeah. Next up was a really good sale and a big hearty thank you to the person who gifted this to us. This was a vintage, and I realized I had misspelled Yamaha as Yahama.
I mean...
Am I boring you again?
Yeah.
I had misspelled it as Yahama, changed it back to Yamaha, and it immediately sold. Dang it.
Like immediately.
Hate that. Hi, and welcome to our What Sold video for December 29th through January 4th, where we'll go over every item that we sold across multiple platforms for our reselling business. Plus, we'll have our 2024 year in review where we'll share how much we earned in 2024, what our top selling categories were, where our best sourcing locations were, and a bunch of other helpful details about our reselling business. So stay tuned for that. Okay, the first thing that we sold was 3 vintage 1952 and 1953 Abrams art books with 48 full color prints from artists like Degas, Manet, Toulouse-Lautrec, and more. We got these at a thrift store in a nearby town for $9.75, and they sold for $40 even, but it took a very long time to sell.
Took a really long time. I picked those up. That was my bad.
Well, they were really nice prints.
They were really nice prints, but I should have known they wouldn't sell quickly. That stuff doesn't move quickly. Next
up was more art. We were selling a lot of art recent, I guess, for Christmas gifts. This was a vintage 1981, although this was after Christmas. So maybe people were using their Christmas money to buy art for their home. This was a vintage 1981 matted and framed photo of an orchid by an artist named Zoe Kirkpatrick, and it was signed. This was something that had been left at our custom picture frame shop probably since 1981. And it sold for $31.99. Next up was a vintage Chouse women's black 100% silk 2-button blazer. We got this at a garage sale for $5 and it sold for $30 even. A lot of times I'll pick up, like Chouse is not a super high-end brand, but it was 100% silk, so that's why we picked it up. Linen is another fabric like that. What else? Cashmere. Yeah, obviously cashmere. Any kind of luxury or high-end fabric or fiber will, even if it is like Old Navy or something, a lot of times that will make the item sell. Next up was a 2 CD set of something called Delta Sleep System, and it was new in the package, although I think the cellophane had a tear on it, which is why it said it has a flaw. We got this at the South Austin Goodwill bins for $1.03, and it sold for $17.99. Next up was a 5-piece lot of hand percussion instruments. It included tambourines, a maraca, and castanets, and I put the keyword shakers in there as well. This came from friends and family. Came with that like big music lot of stuff that we got, and so we had no cost. It sold for $33.97. Next up was an item that we have had in our store for
3 or 4 years.
Probably 4 years. This was a Chi by Carlos Falchi black genuine suede laser cut lined jacket. It was a really nice jacket.
Very heavy.
It was an extra small that was working against it. We got this at a thrift store that we just only sometimes go to. We paid $20 for it, which obviously was too much, because ultimately we got this to sell for only $30 plus shipping on Poshmark. And I mean, that was after a very long time, and I think I just accepted a low offer.
I wanted the space back.
Yeah, once I had anybody that was even remotely interested in it, I was like, I'll take your offer. Yes, please. We made $4 on it, and I was happy about that.
And we got back $20 that we'd sunk years ago.
Yes, exactly. Next up was a vintage lot of 2 white lattice ceramic bird figurines. These were gifted to us, and they sold for $23.98. Next up was a 6-pack of Lightkeeper Pro Christmas light fuses. They were new in the package. This was gifted to us, and these sold for $9.08. And just a quick Light Keeper Pro tip. See what I did there?
Oh, Light Keeper. Yeah, I get it.
We have sold 2 of the actual Light Keeper Pros new in the packages. One we got at an estate sale and one we got at the thrift store. And they both sold like so fast for around $25, I think. But those things are a bolo if you can find them for the right price, not because they sell for tons, but because they always sell fast. It's like a voltmeter tester for Christmas lights specifically. So people want those. Okay, next up was a Possibility Thinkers Bible from 1984, and this was gifted to us. It sold for $14.99. Next up, if you remember from last week, we talked about the artist Opal Palmer and how we have a lot of her artwork and signed and numbered prints. Well, someone from Fort Worth who is affiliated with the Boy Scouts said that she was a big supporter of the Boy Scouts, and they were remodeling a Boy Scout building of some kind and wanted to purchase one of each of those prints for that location in honor of her support of the Boy Scouts. So they purchased the Christmas barn and the wildflower print that we have for $70.98. But the great news is he did local pickup, so we didn't have any shipping on that. So our profit was good on that. Okay, next up was some vintage YMCA Indian guides, father and son handmade leather vests, and they were covered in Indian guide patches.
A lot of patches.
We got these at a garage sale for $3, and they sold for $38. Plus they were made of leather, so you could even just buy them for the leather itself. Next up was a Lefton ceramic standing beagle dog figurine, and it did have a little chip on it, but it was so cute. We got this at an antique store in West Texas, like the town of West Texas, when we were shopping with Cha-Ching King, when we were driving down on a vacation. And we paid $1 for that. It sold for $20. So if you haven't checked out that video where we went sourcing with Cha-Ching King, I'll link it in the description box below.
And we've pretty much sold everything we picked up that day.
That's true. I think
we
this might have been the last
selective, but we had good luck with that stuff.
Next up was a vintage 1953 Better Homes and Gardens 5-ring recipe binder cookbook. This was gifted to us, and it sold for $21.99. There are certain versions of this Better Homes and Gardens cookbook that are very valuable. This one just wasn't one of the more valuable ones.
And it was in rough shape.
It was. Next up was a New With Tags Nike Navy t-shirt. This came from that garage sale across the street, and we paid $2 for it. It sold fast for $19.99. Next up was a Zenana Outfitters cranberry waffle knit loose fit top. This came out of a plus size women's box of clothing that I bought on Facebook Marketplace.
A long time ago.
A very, very, very long time ago. Technically, my cost per item from that box was like $4.32, but this one's on the spreadsheet for $0, probably because I pulled it out to wash it or something, and then I had already rolled the cost into the other items. So anyway, it's on my spreadsheet for $0, but technically I did pay for this item. It sold finally, after all this time, for $13.58. Next up was a pair of Puma men's side stripe track pants. These were gifted to us, and they sold for $24.99. Next up was a vintage Y2K Juicy Couture brown velour gold chain hoodie from originally came from a tracksuit. We got this at the Austin Pets Alive thrift store, and that day they were having 75% off on all sweatshirts and jackets. So nice. We got this for a really good price of $3.85, and it sold for $35. Next up was a vintage 1981 Fitz and Floyd white ceramic mother duck and ducklings cracker tray.
It was a cool looking tray.
It was neat.
I mean, it was really long.
It's a little bit weird to me that you would need a really specific tray for crackers, but you know, no judgment.
I feel like you did just judge them.
But if you say no judgment, it cancels it out.
Oh.
Yeah, that's how
no
it works.
offense, but you're a piece of crap. It's okay when you say it like that?
No, No.
No offense, but you're stupid.
No, I don't think you're understanding it right.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think you're getting it right. All right.
No offense.
It's okay. Offense taken. Okay, so that was gifted to us, and it sold for $26.38. Next up was a really good sale and a big hearty thank you to the person who gifted this to us. This was a vintage 90s Yves Saint Laurent men's two-piece tuxedo, and it did have some damage on the back waistband of the pants, but otherwise this tuxedo was in beautiful condition. And I felt like the waistband could be repaired by just sewing buttons over that area, because it almost looked like one of those areas where it would have those tabs where you could tighten the waistband. Like you could make it look like that. Anyway, I don't really know how that damage occurred, but it was some weird, very
I feel like they probably had it altered at some point.
Very symmetrical damage.
It's a weird size too. It's a 36 waist and a 29 length, so that's not a normal size. So it was probably adjusted at one point.
Oh, I'm sure.
And readjusted.
This is a luxury high-end designer. I'm sure it was custom tailored for somebody. Yeah. So we got this at no cost because it was gifted to us, and it sold for $440. I did communicate with the buyer about the damage and stuff, and I didn't have any bad feeling about it because I felt like you're going to spend that much money. He had some questions about it. We ended up getting really positive feedback on this sale, and so we were very pleased with that. That was a great one.
Best sale of the year.
Definitely. Well, I don't know. Was it the best sale of the year?
Of this year?
We sold that light though for
This is this year. That was on January.
Oh yeah, this is
1st or 2nd.
True.
So this is the best sale of the year.
That's true. Okay, next up was one of those Korg electronic guitar or bass tuners, and we tested it and it worked. We've sold at least one other of these, maybe two. We got this one at a garage sale for $2, and it sold for $18.99.
We've only found two, and they both worked, so I'm assuming they're pretty durable.
Next up was the Cubase desktop recording studio installation disc. We sold this before, and it was returned because the guy said it had no registration number, despite the fact that I had does not include registration number written in the listing 3 times, so he knew that going in. In my opinion, he probably purchased the item and either burned it or downloaded it onto his computer and then used our free returns to return it. But in most cases on used media, I try to remember to do no returns. I just probably forgot on this item. So the second time I listed it, I made sure to list it with no returns, and I actually increased the price because I realized at that point, this is an item that will sell. Because I don't think I had a lot of comps when I comped it the first time, and I was kind of just guesstimating on what the price was. So anyway, we relisted it and sold it to a second buyer for $21.99, which was more. Made some of our money back from that first sale, and they seemed happy with it. So that ended up working out. So that first buyer...
I feel like it went to Iceland or something.
Oh, it did? Oh,
I feel like it went somewhere wacky, yeah.
Oh, interesting. So anyway, that first buyer can... All right. Next up was a women's Tangerine was the brand, black waffle velour kangaroo pocket pullover. This was actually mine. I didn't wear it anymore, and it sold for $13. Next up was a lot of 6 We Sing cassettes, like kids music, and We Sing always sells for us every time. We got these at the thrift store for $1.02 in total, and they sold on Etsy for $26.99. Next up was a brief course in analytic geometry. This was a book, an antique book from 1922. We got that at the South Austin Goodwill bins for $1.03, and it sold for $17.18. Next up was a Jumpstart spelling learning game, some PC software. And we found that in the San Antonio or Waco? San Antonio Goodwill bins for 87 cents, and it sold only for $8.78, but we've sold several of these jump starts. They just sell.
It sells fast. It's easy to send.
Next up was a Yamaha black canvas padded acoustic guitar case. It was brand new with the tags. We found this in one of the Houston Goodwill bins for $2.03. He found it after it had been picked over, and he just walked right back up to the bin, and this was sitting there on top. It sold for $74.98. And when I was editing the video from that bins trip and like putting all the screenshots in from when we were like digging through the bins, if you haven't seen that video, I will link it in the description box below. But I was searching on eBay for Yamaha, and the item kept like, it was just returning no results. I was like, I know we listed this thing. I know we listed it. So then I started searching on our spreadsheet, Yamaha, and it was like nothing coming up. And I was like, did we just not list this? Did we take all the pictures and did it somehow get deleted? Like, what happened? So then I was like, okay, you're going to go about this a different way. I started searching for guitar case, and it popped up, and I realized I had misspelled Yamaha as Yahama.
I mean,
am I boring you again?
Yeah.
I had misspelled it as Yahama, changed it back to Yamaha, and it immediately sold. Dang it.
Like immediately.
Hate that. Seriously hate that. Gotta be more careful, because I had the typewriter issue and the Yahama.
That's 2 mistakes in 1 week.
I know. No, that's 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks. It's only one mistake a week.
2 weeks.
I know. It's bad. It's getting bad around here. All right. So anyway, we made some good money on that. All right. Next up was a Westbound women's olive green star cowl neck pullover top. This was gifted to us, and it sold for $20. Next up was a huge lot of 30 Peanuts books. Kevin picked all of these up at a garage sale for $8. And
where I got all the silverware. Same garage sale.
They sold for $81.97. So that was a good one.
I couldn't believe we made that good of a profit on that box of books.
Next up was a 1995-96 Topps Finest Basketball Larry Johnson card. This was Kevin's, and it sold for $4.29.
It's a nice set.
Next up was a vintage Greist Products rotary buttonholer sewing machine attachment. And we got that at a garage sale for $1. It sold for $24.99. Next up was a single C&F home pillow sham in a yellow and blue stripe pattern. This was a brand new item sold as a sample, and it was gifted to us. My mom actually went to a sample sale and got a bunch of these in various patterns for a really cheap price, and she just gave them to us to sell. So thank you so much, Mom.
So
that sold for $18.99.
Do you think people are just mix and matching, or they have one of those already? Because the odds of them having
probably some of
that
both.
One and trying to match it exactly would be very slim.
I'd say there's probably three things. They're probably either replacing it, maybe it got a stain on it, they're replacing it, they're mixing and matching, or they're buying it for a twin bed.
I never thought about the twin bed.
Okay, next up was a Dave Matthews cassette called Under the Table and Dreaming from 1994. This came from a garage sale for 50 cents, and it sold for $15.99.
I'm not going to do a Dave Matthews impression.
Don't.
I don't want to break the camera.
Next up was a Guidepost Family Concordance to the Bible from 1982. This was gifted to us, and it sold for $12.99. Next up was a lot of 10 ceramic trinket boxes. These were all, Kevin got how many?
I bought 64 either trinket boxes or glass figurines, little figurines for $0.25 a piece. So it was $16 for all of them. So
out of all of those trinket boxes and figurines that he bought, these were all of the trinket boxes that weren't worth listing individually. So we lotted all of these together, and these sold pretty fast. So we got these at the garage sale. We paid in total for all of them $2.50, and they sold for $51.99.
So I doubled what I paid for all 64, and we still have 54 left to sell.
That's true.
I think we're going to make money on this sale.
Definitely. Next up was a lot of 3 Hello Kitty craft paint with water books. They were all new with tags, or new, unused. We got these at the garage sale across the street for $2, and they sold for $24.99. Next up was a lot of 6 1989 Topps baseball cards. These were all Kevin's, and they sold for $12.19.
It's a nice set. Honestly, 89 Topps wasn't really that great of a set, but it was a nice set.
Next up was a 1994 Upper Deck Collector's Choice Silver Signature card for the player Jeff Reardon. This was also Kevin's, and it sold for $2.29, and it was a nice set.
And that was a nice set.
All right, next up was a viewer sale on Poshmark. This was a bundle that went to Naomi. Naomi, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for your purchase. She purchased a Coca-Cola glass, and it was a Spanish version. It said disfrute, which I'm not sure. Does that mean enjoy? It probably means enjoy, because like enjoy Coca-Cola is usually what it says.
Probably.
So that's probably what it means.
I'm not familiar with that particular word.
Next up in her bundle was a pair of Kate Spade earrings in a opal glitter square style, and they were brand new. Then there was a Bob's Burger little pinback button and a teal and yellow enamel and rhinestone hummingbird pendant. Then there was a pair of itsy bitsy 3/8-inch sterling silver Christmas tree stud earrings. Those were really cute. I bought several of those doing retail arbitrage, and this was the last pair to sell. Next up was a Bought Here New York black nylon mini backpack that was also new with tags, and it was super cute. And then there was an Alice in Wonderland Mad Tea Party journal. It had like a gilded edge that was also really cute. And then she also got a 10 light chili pepper set of Kurt Adler like Christmas lights, or just decorative lights. Then there was a handmade pink, rose, and raspberry floral stretch headband or hair tie that was new with tags that we got at a garage sale. And finally, a vintage padded coat hanger with a pink and white stripe and gold leaf design. So we were all in on those items for $31.24. We got most of them at like garage sales. Some items came from the thrift store. I know one item came from the bins, so they came from various places. And Naomi paid in total $148. We gave her a really good deal. It was like, I think like maybe 50 or 60% off plus free shipping, if I'm remembering correctly. So we really do appreciate it, Naomi. And if any of you guys are interested in purchasing items from us, I have links to all of our stores on all of our different platforms in the description box below. There is an eBay coupon code that you can use down below, but if you will let me know that you're a viewer on any of our platforms, I will give you guys an extra good deal. So just reach out if you're interested in anything. All right, next up was a Let's Pretend. I believe this was an audiobook from radio's golden age.
I don't know if it was a book. It was like 6 cassettes.
It was like a story.
Well, it was like 6 cassettes of different stories, I think.
Oh, I see.
From that golden age of radio, children's radio
I
or something like that.
So he got that at the thrift store for $1.03, and it sold for $17.99.
I just thought the cover was cool when I picked it up. It looked really retro, and
it looked like a creepy tree, if I'm remembering right.
It was a creepy tree.
Next up was a 7-inch unmarked cast iron skillet. It had some rusting. It needed some work. Needed to be redone. We got this at an estate sale for $3, and it sold for $39.98.
He was happy with it.
Next up was an 18-inch American Girl style doll, but the brand was FCM, and she came with shoes and accessories, and they were various different brands. This came from friends and family, and it was gifted to us. We didn't have any cost, and it sold for $51. Next up was an item that we got when the house across the street, which is a rental, the last renters moved out, and either they left a bunch of trash on the curb, or the people who came in and cleaned the house out after them left a bunch of their trash on the curb. And after a bunch of other people had gone through their trash,
I've seen a lot of people digging through the trash. A lot.
we were like, let's just go out there and dig through their trash.
So we went and dug.
So we went out and dug through the neighbor's trash and found this item in their trash. So we got this shopping at Kirby's, as I call it. And this was an NES Nintendo Classic Edition double-sided startup instruction. So it had instructions on one side, and on the other side it had a poster. And it was in really good condition despite being in the trash and going through a rainstorm. It was like inside of a box and protected.
Somehow it made it.
Yep. So we had no cost on that, and it sold for $16.99. Next up was another item we got at the garage sale across the street. This was a 1984 vintage lot of Fisher-Price Crazy Combo Horn replacement parts. It was missing pieces. And I had paid $2 for that. It sold really, really fast for $17.99. So I may have had that underpriced. I'm not sure.
Possibly so.
Yeah. So that wraps up all of our sales for this week, but the video is not over, so stay tuned for our year in review. But before we do that, let's go over all of the totals for this week. So our total number of sales was 43, and our average sale price was $36.54.
Which is incredibly high because the tuxedo ramped everything up.
Our sales totaled $1,687.45. And that made for a net profit of $1,049.05. So we finally did it. We made
We broke the $1,000
net
profit
profit
barrier.
goal of over $1,000. So it happened. It finally happened.
That was good. And for the first week of the year.
Yep.
And right before we left town. So
That's true.
It all worked out well.
So next we're going to go over our 2024 year in review. But before we do that, I do want to say that one of the reasons why we had such a good year in 2024 was because we started using Posh Sidekick, and that has really increased our Poshmark sales. We used to sell like 3 things a year on Poshmark, no exaggeration. And now we sell stuff on Poshmark all the time. And that is because we started using Posh Sidekick. And if you're not familiar with what Posh Sidekick is, it is an automation tool that takes care of all of the annoying tasks that you have to do on Poshmark to get sales. And those are things like sharing your closet, following other sellers, and sending offers to likers. So it just handles all of that for you, and it does things that the Poshmark algorithm loves, so it helps increase your sales. And it does all of that and more for just $29.99 a month. That's less than $1 a day to handle all of that for you. So if you're interested in trying out Posh Sidekick, I will have a link in the description box below. You can try it out for 7 days for completely free. And if you're interested in subscribing, we have a coupon code, TheNina'sJewels10, and you can get an additional 10% off of your subscription. All right, so let's move on to our 2024 year in review. So I'm going to share all of our big numbers with you guys, and then in just a minute I'm going to do a screen share with you guys. So in 2024, our total gross sales were $54,906.99. Now that we haven't taken fees, we haven't taken cost of goods, we haven't taken shipping, nothing's come out of that number.
That's the wrong number.
Yeah, that's our gross sales. In 2024, our net profit, so after taking out costs of goods, fees, and shipping, our net profit was $29,758.59. So that's pretty good for part-time. So those are the numbers from our spreadsheet. So that includes all platforms that we list and sell on. I did also go into each of the main platforms that we sell on to see what their numbers stated. But the math doesn't exactly math because each platform generates their numbers differently, and it doesn't take cost of goods into account. So if you add up these numbers I'm about to give you, it's not going to match either of our gross sales or our net profit number. Okay, so according to eBay, our 2024 eBay net sales, which takes out shipping, takes out fees, but it does not take out cost of goods.
Because it doesn't know our cost.
Because it doesn't know. Yeah, eBay is not a psychic. So it listed that as $29,637.59. So far and away, eBay is obviously our largest selling platform. I mean, without eBay, we would be in trouble. So next up is Etsy. The way Etsy did it is they described it as 2024 Etsy revenue. Basically, this number does not deduct cost of goods. It doesn't deduct fees. It doesn't deduct shipping. Nothing is deducted from this number. It's a gross number. It's really gross. So we only sold $593.06 on Etsy, which we didn't really start listing, cross-listing a lot to Etsy until mid-year, I don't think. And I think our Etsy sales have been doing pretty good. So even though this number is low,
up.
Yeah,
Yes.
even though this number is low, I have a lot of faith in Etsy, and I am going to put more effort into Etsy next year.
You just have to put the right items on Etsy.
Yes. So I think Etsy is going to keep trending upwards for us. Okay, next up is Poshmark. And on the Poshmark number, the only thing that's not deducted from this number is cost of goods. So our 2024 Poshmark earnings was $1,211.36. So compared to years previously, this number is much higher.
It's gone up a lot.
Much higher. And I did the math on Posh Sidekick, and well worth it.
And we're trying to expand out to the other platforms more, not be quite as eBay dependent.
Yes.
But we still are eBay dependent.
We are. And there are times when I can really focus on cross-listing, and then there are times when I have to step back and focus on other things. So I'm not as consistent as I would like to be with cross-listing, but
we definitely have thousands more items on eBay than we have on other platforms.
It's just one of those things that when I have the time to dedicate to it, I do, and sometimes I just don't have extra time.
Sometimes she'll do it before she goes to bed.
Yeah. Okay, next up is Mercari. So this number does not deduct cost of goods, but everything else is deducted. So our 2024 Mercari earnings were $809.94. And I would say that this number, in the beginning of the year, we were doing okay on Mercari, but then when they changed up those fees, man, this number
sales
plummeted. So I'm hopeful that things will get better on Mercari, but I'm concerned that Mercari.
I'm wary.
I'm concerned that Mercari did some significant damage to their platform with that whole thing.
They hurt themselves.
They did. So we'll see what happens. Nothing I can do about that. And then we did this. There are other platforms that we sell on, like Facebook Marketplace. Sometimes we do sales through like the RealReal, or sometimes we sell directly to places like Declutter and stuff like that. Those are very, very small amounts.
Yeah.
But those I did not account
Probably
for
less than
on here.
1,000 of that profit this year was from Facebook Marketplace.
Definitely. So now that we've gone over all of the main numbers, I'm going to screen share with you guys my 2024 spreadsheet. Okay, so looking at our spreadsheet, and if you guys are not aware, we got the spreadsheet from Ginger Marvin. I've shared that in videos before, so I'm not going to go into detail, but if you're interested.
And it's just a Google sheet.
It is just a Google sheet, but it is a very detailed Google sheet. So I'll include a link down below on where you can access this. It is a free resource that they give out to resellers. Okay, so this information is from January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. It is strictly limited to the calendar year of 2024. Yes. Okay, so looking at this is on the monthly tab. Looking at this section right here, this shows what our sales were by month and how they trended throughout the year. And you can see they did slightly trend downwards, unfortunately.
If you see the pit here, this is when we were out of town on our Goodwill bins trip.
Yeah.
So that's why sales were down.
And also August is traditionally not a good sales month.
And August is a bad month, so it was kind of a double whammy.
Yeah. And then you can see the best was in the heart of fourth quarter. So I would say that is typical. in keeping with historical data and what's to be expected. Okay, so looking at this section right here, this is broken down by category. So we'll look at what our top selling categories are. And we have more categories than this. This just shows you which ones are the top ones. So first up is women's clothes, coming in at 17.7%, even though we really don't actively, like, we do pick up women's clothes, but it's not something that, like,
we don't like doing clothes.
We don't love doing women's clothes, but boy, they
But it's
sell.
our best category.
It is always our best category. Next up is toys, coming in at 17%. We do love that category.
Yeah, I do like toys.
Next up is trading cards at 9.4%.
And this is number of sales, not profit.
Yes.
Or sales value.
Yeah.
Just number.
Number of sales. Next up is men's clothes at 8.9%. Then books at 8.7%.
Surprised that's not higher.
Electronics at 8.6%.
I'm
Another
surprised
category
that's so high.
we don't love, but does sell well. Next up is home decor at 7.7%. Housewares at 7.6%. Collectibles at 6.3%. Plush at 4.6%. And women's accessories at 3.5%.
And everything else didn't have enough.
Everything else was minuscule. Okay, then looking at this section right here, this is our best sourcing, our top sourcing locations. And I mean, we go to garage sales most often, so it stands to reason that garage sales would be our top sourcing location.
And this is Texas, so we get a lot of months of garage sale weather.
Yeah. You can find garage sales here pretty much year round. So even though it's 40 degrees outside, we saw signs for garage sales yesterday.
I saw a sign yesterday. I mean, we didn't go to it because we were busy, but we saw a sign.
Yeah. So garage sales account for 23.5% of the inventory we obtain. Friends and family account for 19.4%. So that is
20%
very
of
generous.
sales.
Thank you so much. The Goodwill bins account for 15.6% of our inventory. Our local thrift store accounts for 12%. Ourselves account for 9.9%. This is because if I buy a new pair of shoes, I usually try to get rid of a pair of shoes. If I get a new pair of jeans, I usually try to get rid of a pair of jeans. And we try to sell everything on eBay rather than throwing it away or donating it, because obviously it's 10% of our sales. There's money to be made there.
215 items of our own items that we sold last year.
And, occasionally we'll clean out a closet and go through it and get rid of stuff. And there's inventory there. Don't count yourselves out. That's why I always say start with stuff from your own house if you're going to start reselling.
Yeah.
There is inventory there.
It's good practice.
Next up was storage units, coming in at 5.5%. Estate sales, only 4.9%.
I can't believe it's so far down.
I know, it really is.
All of our estate sales have been really high priced the past couple of years.
They've been getting bad. These are church rummage sales at 3%, which we would love that to be higher, but we don't find them very often.
70% if we could find them.
Next up is our other business, which is the custom picture frame shop, 1.5%.
Stuff that comes from there, from storage and stuff.
These are items that we've sourced on Facebook Marketplace, coming in at 1.4%. Retail arbitrage from Big Lots, which is going out of business. That was 0.6%. Other items that we've sourced through the Nextdoor app at 0.6%. That kids' shoe liquidation purchase that I made is also 0.6%. Another local thrift store that we go to, but not as often,
I don't think we've been there in like 2 years.
0.4%. And the Via Trading swimsuit box that we got was 0.4%. Another retail arbitrage sourcing location at 0.4%. And items that we sourced on Mercari using money that we earned from our affiliate link. So anytime you guys click on my affiliate link for Mercari or Poshmark or any of the affiliate links that I have down below, I'm super appreciative of that. And for Mercari, I use that money to actually source other items to resell. So, and I would encourage you guys to do the same, because on Mercari, if you click my link, you initially get $10 to spend on any item on Mercari. And then after you sell $100 in items on Mercari, you get an additional $20 to spend. So that's $30 that you get to spend
Free money
on any item on Mercari, and you can use that to buy things
and
to
Mercari
resell.
doesn't have subscriptions or anything, right? Mercari is just
Yeah, it's free
flat.
to use.
Yeah, free to use.
So, other than the fees. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So anyway, that helps me out and it helps you guys out, and we're able to help out other resellers by buying things from them. And then that's it. So that is all of our sourcing information. Well, that concludes our 2024 year in review. I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned something new. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button. And if you enjoyed this video, please let me and YouTube know by hitting that subscribe button. Also, stay tuned for the next video that's going to pop up somewhere around here on the screen, because I and YouTube think that you might enjoy it. All right, well, thanks for joining, and we will catch you guys on the flip side.